I remember the moment the world turned against me. It was a typical Tuesday morning, the usual hum of office chatter surrounding me like white noise. Then my phone buzzed, a notification that felt like a gunshot in a quiet room. HR, my stomach dropped. "Daniel, I need you to come to my office." The voice on the other end was sterile, clinical, void of warmth. The walls felt like they were closing in. I dragged my feet down the fluorescent-lit hallway, my mind racing. What had I done? The door shut behind me, cutting off the outside world. The HR representative's expression was grim. "I'm afraid we received a formal allegation." The weight of those words crushed me. No, it wasn't just an allegation. It was a death sentence. Alina, my trusted colleague. Betrayal lurked behind her name like a shadow. The accusation, something vile, unfathomable, too ugly to utter. I was a monster in the eyes of others, an image fabricated from her twisted truth. Those first moments were a blur, disbelief mixing with a rising tide of confusion. Everyone believed her. Everyone. I was the ghost in a room full of witnesses, left to navigate the discomfort of staring faces and whispered judgments. I scanned the room as the HR representative continued talking, but her words faded. Colleagues shot sidelong glances, their trust faltering. Friends vanished like smoke. The silence that enveloped me was colder than any accusation. I fought to remain composed, but inside, I felt the bitter pulse of injustice. They didn't see me. No one could. Not the betrayer, not the betrayer's applause. They only saw the monster. In that moment, I knew. Justice would not come through words or tears. It would come from the shadows, from the quiet spaces where my mind could plot revenge. I'd bury my anger, coldly calculating the path I would take. I'd pull at the seams of her story, unravel the threads she so carefully wove. I wouldn't shout or scream. The truth would bleed quietly, like ink on paper, and when it did, it would be a whisper nobody could ignore. I was done being the victim. I would become the architect of my own redemption. The moment the world shifted, the world would shift again. This time, I'd hold the cards. Public opinion forms faster than truth. In the digital age, a whisper spreads like wildfire, igniting furious flames of judgment before any scrutiny can take hold. One moment, I was a respected engineer at the helm of a promising project. The next, I was a pariah, cloaked in the shame of allegations that carved my existence into fragmented shards. Messages began to trickle in, not meant for my eyes. Colleagues unfriend me on social media. Their silence screams louder than their absence. I watch as my circle narrows, each notification a knife digging deeper into the raw wound. My manager? Gone. Every attempt to reach out shrouded in an eerie stillness. It was as if I had vanished from their memory, replaced by a persona they deemed guilty, tarnished beyond repair. I remember the lawyer's face, his eyes steady yet clouded with resignation. "There's no fighting a narrative, Daniel," he had said, drumming fingers on the leather of his briefcase. "You're already canceled." The words hung in the air, sickly sweet with futility, like a noose tightening around my neck. I yearned for a fight, slashing through the fabric of deceit with truth, but it would not come. Justice would not be granted. It had to be seized. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the rush of despair. No rescue was coming, no knight to save the day, no majestic cavalry. The only rescue that mattered would be my own. I felt a violent resolve hardening within me, a cold clarity that pierced through the fog of betrayal. This was not the end. It was the beginning of something dark yet undeniable. In the face of a world that saw only accusations, I decided to become the architect of my own redemption. I'd slip into the shadows, observing every move made by those who thought they could destroy me. Every glance, every whisper, every rearing smile felt like a complicit betrayal. I would not be the panicked victim. No emotions would betray my strategies. I would quietly unravel the very schema that had ensnared me. Rage may spark a fire, but in my hands, it would become a tool, a means to an end. I would take apart Alina's narrative thread by thread, expose its weaknesses. The truth would not be declared in the cacophony of outrage. No, it would seep through like ink on paper, a silent billow that rendered her fabrications irrelevant. As I sat in the darkness of my apartment, the world outside continued, blissfully unaware of the quiet storm brewing within. I observed, calculated, and prepared for the moment when silence would bear my truth. They believed her, yes. But the whisper of the truth would be quieter and deadlier than the loudest of accusations. The world shifted once more, and this time, I would hold the reins. I isolate myself now, shutting the world out like curtains drawn on a sunless day. The silence in my apartment is my only ally, a sanctuary from the poison of whispers echoing outside. In this vacuum, I meticulously piece together fragments of what once stood as a solid narrative. Each detail matters. I sift through emails, timestamps blinking at me like the staccato rhythm of a heartbeat. Alina's accusations were reckless, flung into the ether without foundation. She had painted my world with lies, and now I was determined to reclaim the canvas. I boot up the software that serves as my mind's repository. The hum of the machine is a comforting lullaby as I dive deep into the archives, searching for anything she might have overlooked. Security footage, logs, badges, all pieces of a puzzle that could unravel her tightly knitted narrative. The hours blend into each other, an unrelenting assault of keystrokes and calculations. I can feel her shadow, the ghost of her betrayal, lingering at the periphery of my consciousness. Each watch of the footage amplifies my resolve. It's methodical. I craft a chart detailing each interaction, every email exchange, every movement logged in and out of the building. I memorize them like a code, cracking her facade with discernment. A 90-second gap soon emerges, a blip in the surveillance feed. My pulse quickens. It's a weakness in her armor. I close my eyes momentarily, the darkness behind my eyelids illuminating a slew of possibilities. In that quiet expanse, I imagine the trajectory of this chain of events, her careful choreography disrupted by my hidden hand. A calculated insertion of truth into an unforgiving city of shadows and lies. I dive deeper, scouring internal Slack channels, the digital veins pulsing with secrets. Then I find it. Her own words, slithering across the screen, betraying the facade. I need a scapegoat, she wrote, each keystroke a prelude to the destruction I now seek to counteract. A surging thrill fires through me, pulsing with energy and focus. Cold clarity races through my veins. I am not merely building a case. I am assembling a weapon of silence. A quiet storm ready to break the facade she crafted with such care. I grin slightly as I picture the disarray she'll face when the truth crawls from its nest of shadows. She won't see me coming. Let them believe her. Let them weave their narratives, waiting for another salacious tale. They will soon realize the tether of their madness is fraying. Notes accumulate on my desk, A growing pile of her missteps, contractions, inconsistencies, all stored neatly in the scattered margins of my plans. When the time comes, they will reveal her duplicity with the surgical precision of a scalpel. I squeeze the stress ball in my palm, the tension rolling off my shoulders, a breath in the guise of a sigh. Every moment of waiting, every quiet hour spent typing and clicking, sharpens my resolve. The world may see me as the monster Alina painted, but I will transform reality into something far more sinister, a truth buried beneath layers, yet desperately awaiting resurrection. I flick the lights off, plunging the room into darkness, the glow of the screen the only remnant of my preparations. Outside, they carry on, blissfully unaware of the unraveling fate awaiting the architect of my demise. Their applause for her lies mingles with the rustling of leaves in the night. And I wait, patient, invisible. I will shatter the silence with righteous precision, sticking to the shadows until the time is right. My revenge will echo quietly, but its impact will resonate far beyond her wildest grasp. All that pain felt will soon be a code, programmatically deconstructed, leaving no trace of the monster she conjured. I am becoming the architect now, and soon the world will shift once more. I've become a ghost in this city, slipping through the streets with only shadows to accompany me. The social arena I once thrived in, it's a barren wasteland, a space I have chosen to let fade to black. I mute my presence, curating an identity that no longer needs applause or vindication. Silence now wraps around me like a cloak, concealing my movements and my thoughts. In the days that followed Alina's rise, I weaponized this disappearance. I turned my back on the online chatter, refraining from reactive posts or angry retorts. Instead, I became an observer, quietly watching as her narrative prospered, celebrated on podiums I once aspired to grace. Each accolade she received was a dagger twisted deeper into the false persona she had sculpted. The more silent I became, the more she spoke, her voice nesting in the very echoes that would soon betray her. I could see it now, the pattern behind her performance, the rehearsed pauses, the tear-streaked cheeks that appeared during moments of quintessential drama. Everything designed for sympathy, every interview a masterclass in manipulation. I thought of the gap in the footage, the 90 seconds where her reality faltered. It became a mantra, a reminder that I was not just a victim. I was a strategist, waiting for the moment when whispered truth would shatter her amplified lies. I fed on the irony of her ascent while I descended into the shadows, embracing the power of anonymity. In the stillness of my apartment, darkness wrapping me like a blanket, I meticulously archived evidence, timestamps, retrievable Slack logs, her rehearsed scripts. The screen flickered under the low light of my desk lamp, illuminating truth where Alina had left shadows. In those moments, I felt a cold exhilaration. I was no longer the hunted, but the hunter. And oh, how I relished her imminent collapse. I envisioned the moment her carefully constructed house of cards would tilt. The wait of 90 seconds extended into a silent promise, a waiting that felt both heavenly and monstrous. By choosing to vanish, I had chosen my revenge. Slow, deliberate, quiet. Days turned into a rhythm of patient observation. Each time I caught sight of her gleaming accolades on screens around me, I smiled inwardly. More footage played in my mind, a continuous loop of her unraveling honesty. They cheered, they adored. They would eventually crumble under the weight of my truth. I was still nobody, unseen. That's how revenge whispers. It doesn't scream, It does not announce its arrival. Each hour spent locked in darkness chipped away Alina's foundation. Cement, crumbling into dust, awaits a gust of wind to scatter it to the world. This gaping void of silence would become her undoing. Let them believe her. They would soon learn that reality isn't defined by loud proclamations, but echoed in the quiet spaces where truth festers. The cycle was set in motion. Invisibility had become my greatest asset, and I was ready to pull the strings when the moment arrived. The darkness embraced me as night fell, and I marveled at what was to come. None would hear it, but those caught in the storm would never forget. The unrelenting cycle of Alina's narrative plays on repeat in the minds of those around me, a carefully constructed echo chamber flourishing without scrutiny. I listen as they cling to her every word, each phrase an incantation that solidifies her crafted persona. The same quotes, the same pauses. Her performance is dialed, rehearsed to perfection. I find a macabre amusement in the predictability of it all, almost as if I'm watching a bad play unravel before my eyes. In an inaccessible corner of the web, a public press server hides the original raw interview files. My pulse quickens with anticipation as I sift through the digital flotsam. I find it, a grainy recording, awkward halts punctuating her practiced tone. This version of her story flounders under the weight of authenticity, a stark contrast to the tear-streaked version circulating through the hallways and trending online. From hurt to euphoria, I morph. The wound she inflicted on me ripples with a cold intensity, transforming into something far more potent. The knowledge that every fabricated truth has a seam. I study the footage like a predator observing prey, finding pleasure in her meticulously choreographed deceit. Here, in this moment, she's exposed, raw and unfiltered. I can almost feel her growing paranoia. I imagine Alina's smile fading beneath a veil of uncertainty, glancing around searchingly, wondering why the room feels colder. Little does she know, the very attention she craves is slipping through her fingers. The stage she built is crumbling with each passing day, the applause converting into murmurs, and soon, whispers of doubt. I begin my meticulous archiving. Each discrepancy is time-stamped, archived with precision, every slack log exported like evidence in a courtroom. I am a ghost in my own right, not haunting her, but recording her misdeeds. I am no longer the hunted. I am the archivist gathering threads for the tapestry of her downfall. With each layer I unearth, I feel the scale of power shift. The triumphant glimmer of control surges within me, doubling with each discrepancy I note. Negligent swipes in her narrative emerge like cracks in the foundation of a building that once stood bold and proud. Oh, how joyful it is to watch her strut across that stage, oblivious to the growing tremors beneath her feet. It becomes clear. Every time she opens her mouth to speak, she unwittingly tightens the noose around her own illusion. I relish the thought, imagining her face as the truth peels back her facade. The shock, the betrayal echoed in her wide eyes. Let them believe her, I think. They will soon learn how fragile her empire is when merely a breath of truth dances through the air. I immerse myself further into the depths of her betrayal, calculating when to act, when to let silence stretch into palpable tension. Right now, patience is my ally. I want her to feel the pressure build, to become aware of the ground shifting beneath her without realizing it's only a matter of time before her world collapses around her. As night envelops the room, I bask in the quiet thrill coursing through me. Alina's echo chamber wilts, The once loyal listeners begin to turn their heads. I am the unseen orchestrator of her unraveling, and as I peer through the shadows, I savor the knowledge that the moment is drawing near, when she will fall, and no one will hear her screams. I am the architect, and her illusion is my masterpiece made to shatter. I fall into the rhythm of my obsession, cataloging each misstep and inconsistent memory until they form a coherent indictment. Hours slip away, my only company the glow of the computer screen and the silence of my surroundings. I'm building a fortress of truth, one that will loom over Alina's fragile constructs when the time is right. But like all meticulously laid plans, mine encounters an uninvited variable, a complication that threatens to shatter my quiet archive. I receive an anonymous message late one evening, the kind that chills the marrow, skimming the surface of my well-crafted anonymity. I saw the footage, it reads, a simple sentence layered with gravity. You should be careful. My heart thuds in the quiet, a sudden drum in a silent hall. Someone, somewhere, has become privy to my clandestine work. My fingers hover over the keyboard, poised between reaction and restraint. Panic has no place here. Taking a deep breath, I navigate the darkness of my thoughts, recalibrating amidst uncertainty. I don't need to unravel. I need precision. A knife sharpened again. This isn't a call for retreat. It's an opportunity to assess the periphery, to redefine the parameters. I sense the shadow of a threat hovering just beyond the threshold of my comfort, a whisper too close for comfort. Had I gone too far? Had I drawn attention to my designs? I slant my monitor to reflect in a new angle, scanning the room for anything out of place. I am not ready to be discovered, not yet. The world outside continues its mundane routine, blissfully ignorant of my looming storm. I remind myself that the clock still tick-tocks in my favor. This is my game, not Alina's, and I won't be cornered by her miscalculated fallout. I dive into research mode, searching digital echoes of what could lead to this disruption. There's no room for fear, only calculated vigilance. I locate the risk and examine it, whole, unflinching. At this pace, I cannot afford slip-ups. The calm exterior I've crafted must remain intact. I scan through previous communications, deducing connections. That first blip in the footage, that 90-second gap? It's more than a weak point for Alina. It has now become the very vortex into which I must channel my concentration. I can't allow distractions to cloud my focus. I will not let uncertainty punctuate my resolve. My responses are singularly strategic, a chessboard populated by vigilant pieces. I don't need friends. I don't need allies. I only need time. So I archive more diligently. I scroll through every chat log, unraveling threads of conversation. The Slack exchanges where Alina hints at her vulnerability, affirming to her colleagues her need for a shield. I need a scapegoat, she had said. A slip, a hint. The shadows speak. I capture her words, stacking them next to timestamps and matching them with the footage I've yet to exploit. The pieces come together like a surgical stitch, weaving a narrative too tight to ignore. The person who sent me the warning may have introduced volatility, but I remain the architect here, unyielding and meticulous. I lock the laptop away, deep into the cavern of my mind, where the shuttered doors keep the world at bay. The remnants of my plan lay waiting, dormant yet primed, burdened not by fear but by potential. There are risks in this realm of shadows, but I refuse to falter. Tomorrow, when the sun creeps over the horizon, I will re-emerge, and Alina will think her fortress remains impenetrable, when in truth, I will strike from the silence. With every passing moment of this drawn-out game, I am not a ghost. I am a built-up force, a quiet storm ready to unleash calculated fury, leverage to remind them all of the walls she has so deftly constructed, walls I intend to dismantle. Late one night, I sit alone in the darkness, bathed only in the soft glow of my laptop screen. There's no rush, no one to please or pit against me. Just me, the architect, ready to unveil the truth. My heart beats in a rhythmic tempo as I prepare to release the carefully brewed vengeance that has simmered in the shadows for months. With a calculated flick of my wrist, I upload the footage, the deleted hallway camera clips, the incriminating Slack logs, her contradictory interviews, all stitched together into a silent Google sheet nestled within a dormant blog. It feels surreal, like opening a floodgate without the chaos of a storm. There's no message accompanying the upload, no alert to draw attention. I don't need an audience. I need noise to subside, not grow louder. My fingers hover over the keyboard, poised, yet steady. There's no need for a gleaming headline or an echoing announcement. I understand now. The real impact lies in whispering, not shouting. It's in the distance that echoes become an unrivaled force. I hit upload with an unshakable calm, watching the progress bar fill, and then it's done. My heart switches gears, not racing, but rather settling into a steady thrum of satisfaction. In the hours that follow, I do nothing. I don't check notifications. I don't dive into social media forums. I sit with the silence, surrendering to the weight of anticipation and control. It's not the upload that will fracture Alina's story. It's the silence wrapping around it. Thick, suffocating, like a ghost enveloping its unsuspecting prey. As the sun begins to rise, I allow myself to imagine her waking up, flush with the glory of her fabricated victory. The applause still reverberating in the hallways, the newspaper clippings delayed for effect. She sits atop a throne of applause, only to find her legs are propped on a foundation of sand. There's an artistry to it. In the end, she will turn to find her empire crumbling, and it will be the quiet that unravels her. Not my chaotic venom, but a gentle whisper of truth. Unassuming ground that shifts beneath her, rendering her balance precarious. And even now, in this stillness, I feel her unease lurking around the corners of her mind. Does she sense the ground quaking beneath her with the weight of the truths I've woven into the silent sheet? Does she understand that the affection she garners will soon reflect back on her like a shattered mirror? Her triumph is just a forward motion in the chaos. All it takes is one cautious push, one subtle breath, to send it all tumbling down. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm the orchestrator of a silent storm. Each moment of waiting strengthens my resolve, allows me to accompany each breath with a hint of purpose. My plan is evolving, tighter, smarter, more dangerous. Biding time has become a crucial part of the scheme. Each passing second, a calculated delay, a necessary measure. I relish the gradual return of power, a return that demands mastery. Daylight filters in, faintly illuminating the room where I've buried my pain and nurtured my focus. I know revenge isn't impulsive. It's a mastery of strategy dressed in the skin of patience. It's a meticulous art where every movement creates ripples leading towards a reckoning, transforming each overlooked detail into a weapon far sharper than any gavel could ever render. I remain in control, wholly unbreakable, ready to let silence speak volumes. They don't know yet. but as I merge myself back into their sphere of existence, it will be I who spins the story from the heart of the quiet. I've recalibrated the battlefield, and as I step back into view, it won't be as the monster they imagined, but as the ghost from the shadows, untethered and unfazed, while the revelation of her deceit looms within reach. Alina's carefully constructed narrative was beginning to crumble, each delighted cheer she garnered now reverberating back as a collective sigh of doubt. The air snapped with tension around her, and with every passing day, I felt the storm brewing, the anticipated reckoning edging closer, waiting for its moment to strike. A lone op-ed, embedded in anonymity, was the first crack in her facade. It questioned the veracity of her claims, subtle yet insistent, planting seeds of uncertainty. I watched, invisible and untraceable, as her polished images began to fray at the edges, an unraveling thread in the tapestry of her lies. I savored the sweet taste of control coursing through my veins, relishing the precision of my plans at work. In the wake of that first whisper, a video was quietly deleted, the metadata revealing Alina's rehearsed facade collapsing. A major sponsor, who had wrapped her in promotional glory and reverence, abruptly canceled her TEDx event. The momentum surged. The storm clouds amassed harder and darker over her once illustrious image. Yet the real gift came in the quiet. When the journalist reached out with an innocuous question, "We reviewed the footage. Can you confirm the logs?" I felt the tremor of my heart mirroring the quake of Alina's certainty. Her platform was teetering, unmoored from the trust she had wielded like a weapon. I relished her impending panic, knowing it was only a matter of time before the truths I had collected would surfacing in a whirlwind. Her world wouldn't explode from noise or accusations. No, it would collapse under the weight of its own inconsistencies, interwoven by the languid hand of truth unfolding. It was a spectacle masquerading as art, and like an absorbed audience, I marveled at the impending chaos. The revenge was no longer mine alone. It became a current moving far beyond my control. I had let go, and in that release, it grew teeth that no one anticipated. The very silence I had imposed became a tempest. Each breath she took echoed with a tightening noose she couldn't see. Cold clarity took root. There was sheer power in fading into the background while I orchestrated her downfall. I felt an excitement bubbling, tempered by the icy clarity of patience. Her unease was the only beacon I needed. She was discovering the unpredictable nature of her world. To everyone else, she was the victim, but I alone understood the reckoning that waited just below the surface, invisible but ever-present. Days slipped into a throbbing rhythm of anticipation. Each hour passed along the invisible thread of time, binding me to the simple beauty of her inevitability. I would remain invisible, enjoying a voyeuristic perspective as the storm drew closer. The way I felt at that moment, prepared, calculated, like a predator approaching its prey, made every hour of waiting worth it. Let her bask in the shadows of fame and hollow applause. I would become the eye of the hurricane, poised to unleash chaos with the precision of an artist wields a brush. The world might still believe her, but soon, very soon, they would unravel with the same joy I once felt for her victories. And as the silence around her thickened, she hadn't the slightest inkling of the storm that awaited her. Her empire was falling, and I was the architect of her demise, crafting the delicate intricacies of her downfall with a touch both loving and lethal. The blade hovered. The strike was near. Alina's apology lands like a feather in a storm, soft, yet it contains a weight that threatens to upend her world. "I need to share my truth," she writes, couching her admission in therapeutic jargon that thickens the air around it. This was my trauma response. I'm on a healing journey. A part of me wants to linger on her words, to dissect them with the precision I've honed through sleepless nights spent watching her unravel. But instead, I choose to observe from the shadows. Silence is my companion now, a hushed breath in the chaos she's fashioned. The room around me feels small, but not suffocating, as if her voice echoes less from walls that once gave her strength. I glance at my screen, reminders of her distortions lingering like ghosts. There's no immediate vindication. I resist the urge to engage with the frenzy her words incite. Instead, I relish this moment, a shift softly laced with calculated anticipation. Each comment thread that unfolds like a tapestry of doubt reveals cracks in her carefully crafted facade. What did she mean by that? Was it really true? The questions multiply, whispered away like smoke, and its tendrils reach into the hearts of those who believed her. They start to feel the weight of her words, a shift from reverence to scrutiny. My heart thrums steadily. It no longer races in the pursuit of revenge or fury. I watch intently, chronicle each drowning sentiment in shared posts, each questioning look exchanged in hushed corners of the digital realm. I've released the torrent, I realize, the one that would drown her in a tide of her own making. Brushing my fingers against the smooth keys of my laptop, I trace the path of a quiet architect, piecing together a narrative I long knew was flawed. I'm not the one crumbling. She is. Her journey doesn't rhyme with healing. It's stained with self-preservation and misdeeds slipping through her fingers, washed away by the subtle tides of truth. It's striking, really. This isn't about punishment. I've discarded the notion of a public spectacle. The real pleasure isn't in her agony. It's in the erosion of her confidence, the collapse of certainty she once clung to so desperately. Regret has no witnesses. Remorse is a solo act, and I sit in the audience watching her take the stage, unaware that I'm holding the curtain strings. Let the collapse be yours to explain, I think, as I consume the back-channel discussions unfurling on subreddits and chat groups. Their opinions are shifting, swirling with caution. I'm not pulling the strings from afar. I'm the quiet stillness behind the storm, brokering change without a trace. Soon, she won't be conjuring tears for sympathy, but fending off skepticism and pointed questions. Why the inconsistencies? How does her story unravel at its seams? The truth will curl its fingers around her conscience, wringing out the last remnants of confidence she once wielded like a weapon. And in her solitude of truth wrestling with pain, I find a cold satisfaction. It's almost serene, this watchful waiting. The mirror reflecting back her visage is cracking ever so slightly, a slow realization etching across her brow. I feel no remorse. My anger has dissipated like a morning fog, replaced by an analytical calm, identical to the breath of a sniper poised for that final shot. Just wait, I whisper to the quiet, letting the words unspool into the emptiness. No longer do I seek the explosive crescendo of vengeance. Instead, I want the delicate unscrewing of a truth that will play out in whispers. Slowly, methodically, like a silence that envelops what was once all noise. Tomorrow, the cycle begins anew. I imagine her waking up to echoes of conversations that question her validity, the mottled exposure of her lies illuminating in unflattering daylight. I hold on to the knowledge that the downfall will not be mine to orchestrate publicly. I'll recede into the walls that have long masked me, allowing her to unravel alone. To lose oneself in the seeing rather than in the being. This is the final gift I offer her. She will teach the world that they cannot soar without the honest weight that sits firm in their belly. As I breathe in the stillness around me, I feel the clicks of the trap falling into place, every tiny mechanism positioned for inevitable engagement. I am simply here, waiting. I sit in the glow of my laptop, the silence a shroud that envelops my senses. Tonight is not just another night. It's the culmination of months spent in the shadows, meticulously preparing for this very moment. The clock ticks steadily, matching the rhythm of my heart, a steady drumbeat of resolve. I launch the browser, finding the dormant blog where I've nestled my truths, a digital graveyard for the lies Alina cultivated. Each piece of footage, every deleted hallway clip, the convoluted Slack logs, bears witness to her unraveling. I touch the keys gently, feeling the weight of what I'm about to unleash. Then, with a finality that reverberates through me, I click Upload. The progress bar fills slowly, each rising percentage a signal of liberation, and as I watch it complete, I can almost hear the echoes of her triumph fading into the void. There's an artistry to this moment. It's breathtakingly quiet. No trumpets, no fanfare, just me, the architect of my own retribution, allowing the carefully constructed narrative to untangle itself in the dark. In the hours that follow, I nestle into my solitude, intentionally ignoring the notifications that would announce the storm breaching Alina's carefully guarded image. I don't check the social feed, nor refresh my inbox. Silence becomes my shield, my weapon. And as dawn breaks, I envision her awakening in a bed of soft accolades, the glimmer of appreciation blinding her to the reality that her empire is perched precariously on a precipice. My heart simmers with satisfaction, an icy calm akin to the stillness before the storm. She sits at the height of her success, each applause a fragile piece of glass in her construct, and she has no idea that the foundation is sand. The echoes of her past accolades will soon rise to assail her like a chorus of vengeful spirits. I imagine her laughter turning brittle as tension seeps in, twisting like ivy around the frame of her confidence, each breath she takes buoyed by an unspoken question. What is happening? My predictions don't take long to manifest. A subtle article circulates, an op-ed questioning the coherence of her narrative, and I feel the ripple of doubt signal the beginning of her unraveling. The questions multiply. What did she mean by that? How could such inconsistencies exist? I lean into the quiet, savoring the suspense. It's a performance I have directed with surgical precision. Then, as if choreographed, her video disappears from the public eye, a digital signature left behind in sepia tones. The sky darkens further with reports of a major sponsor's cancellation, a match struck against her once lustrous reputation. I relish each confirming beat, a tangible testament to the moonlit chaos unfolding. She had shattered the glass, and now the shards pierce her sanctuary. Time to watch the blood flow. A journalist, curious and keen, reaches out to inquire about those confidential logs. It's the moment I anticipated, the cracks splintering Alina's carefully constructed castle. She lives on borrowed time now, grasping for narratives even as they slip through her fingers like sand. I can imagine the colors draining from her face as the realization sinks in. Her orchestration is no longer a symphony, but a cacophony of half-truths collapsing under their weight. I sit back, a cold satisfaction humming through me. No need to engage. No need to dance in an emotional frenzy. She's disintegrating before my eyes. And yet, there's no triumph in my heart. No need for vengeance. The chaos is not mine. It's hers. The world believes her still, but the truth is the linchpin, and oh, how it will twist as it quietly unfurls. Alina posted an ambiguous apology, dressing her failure in therapy speak. My truth, trauma response, healing journey. Little does she know, regret has no witnesses, and I stand in the wings, an audience to her self-preservation. I breathe in slowly, savoring each moment of her cavalcade toward oblivion. Her certainty erodes while mine solidifies. Then a message arrives from a long-forgotten friend. I didn't know. The words flutter through my thoughts, igniting a kind of clarity that illuminates my spirit. Vindication doesn't arrive like a fanfare. It arrives as a soft commotion in the quiet, an unraveling tapestry made of lies revealing the beauty of truths. My phone buzzes a second time, this time from a recruiter wanting to discuss potential employment. There it is, a soft flicker of hope, longing for rebirth. I know now that I will not wear my recovery like a badge. My scars will be invisible. What these people don't see is this. I don't cultivate vengeance, nor do I sow for recognition. I simply wanted to peel away the layers that concealed the truth of who I am. I realize revenge isn't the piece of my heart I sought to reclaim. It is the knowledge, the profound realization that I can build my own narratives without their acknowledgement or applause. I find myself standing on the edge of that precipice. I choose silence, once more cradling the power within it. And so, I nestle back into that awareness as my phone vibrates again, life returning in surreal echoes around me. I can feel the weight shift off my chest, the gnarled knots untangling slowly in the breath of a single moment. Everyone may have believed her, but now they are left holding the consequences of their misplaced trust while I walk away without a glance back. Outside, the daylight beckons me, and today I will step beyond the boundaries of this orchestration, renouncing the identity that had tethered me. I feel light, unshackled. The shards of the glass may lay strewn behind me, but I rise unfazed. The version of me they shredded is gone, leaving in its wake a sense of purpose draped in clarity. The silence I craved is now filled with the sounds of a broken promise, a truth no longer swaddled in shadows, but bursting forth, radiant. I walk outside and into the light, embracing peace tinged with the remnants of what was, fully aware that healing isn't about being heard. No, it is in knowing that they were wrong, and that I no longer need them to bear witness. The world shifts ever and again, yet this time, it's I who chart the course. I open the draft email I crafted 6 months ago, its words sharp and brimming with the venom I once felt. Alina, in all her wretched glory, was the recipient of my thoughts spiraled into a crumpled narrative of revenge, a message I never sent. Even now, as my cursor hovers, I realize I no longer need to stand upon a stage of pain or broadcast my closure. The silence that surrounds me is the truest reflection of the power I've reclaimed. Outside, the world churns with the mundane. Cars pass, laughter echoes, yet I stand apart, removed from the cacophony that once echoed in my own head. The emotional cost of my journey sits heavy yet strangely uplifting. I had carved a wound, deep and dark, into the fabric of my life that now threatens to sew itself shut without the need for recognition, for vindication. I had intended on orchestrating Alina's downfall, on waiting for that moment when the truth of her lies would unravel before her eager audience. I sat vigil while time churned, watching, waiting, plotting. The chaos I unleashed, however, morphed into something unforeseen. I became a vessel of shadows rather than the monster she had conjured. And here, at this moment of clarity, I see how her empire has crumbled under the weight of their misplaced trust. The applause has faded to whispers of doubt, and in that air of uncertainty, I find my solace. The remnants of our shared existence linger in the chambers of my memory, but they no longer bind me. Alina is no longer my opponent. She is but a ghost I can lock behind the many doors of my past. The silence I longed to impose upon her has transformed into a powerful force that reverberates softly, an echo I no longer need to hear. As sunlight streams through my window, illuminating my world anew, I recognize the beauty of moving forward. There's peace in knowing she is out there groping for counterfeit validation, while I slip quietly away, a figment in her mind. I am untouched now, untethered from the weight of her accusations and the rubble of my identity that she sought to dismantle. Each step I take on the pavement feels lighter than before. The road stretches out, vast and empty before me, marked only by the fading impressions of my past. Shadows grow longer in the afternoon light. They whisper of former grievances left behind. This is closure not demanded, brittle or loud, but serene and quietly felt. I no longer wish her suffering. I wish her silence. I take one last glance back at the locked door where the remnants of that life are buried. They who cheered for her, who jeered at my fall, are now navigating the chasms I engineered from within the shadows. Their voices fade, a dim murmur caught in the gusts of a passing breeze. My revenge was not the shattering of her spirit, but the quiet flicker of a truth no longer veiled beneath layers of deceit. The version of me they shredded is, indeed, gone. What remains is a clarity I never imagined I would discover through this storm. I walk on, releasing those lingering fragments of anger. This journey, steeped in darkness, has birthed a sense of purpose that feels intoxicating in its clarity. You don't heal by being heard. You heal by knowing they were wrong, and by no longer needing them to admit it. Today, I gather my strength and step into the light, a moving forward that resonates deeper than any victory claimed in a courtroom or in whispered gossip. I embrace this peace and continue down a path less fraught with shadows. The sun warms my face, each heartbeat a reminder that I am no longer confined to the prison of their perception. I no longer need to cross my fingers in anticipation of recognition. I find strength in this quiet. I am free,